Okay, we're going to be looking at a research paper on the effectiveness of the MAP Accelerator powered by Khan Academy here. It's in conjunction with NWEA. Most people are probably familiar with Khan Academy, so I won't go into that in too much detail, but they're well known for math, and this is also about math. Khan Academy covers a large number of subjects, does so pretty well, not as a primary instructional tool, but as extra work, or there are videos with worked examples and things like that available for math, science, most of the social history, economics, etc. And they have in the past couple of years been developing their ELA stuff. It's a really good tool for teachers to take advantage of. But one of the big complaints that I've had about Khan Academy is that it's really linear. It doesn't actually adapt for the student at all. I get around that a little bit by doing things like having the kids do the Khan Academy unit test as a pre-test, and then have them go back and work on things that they don't know, or using a method that was popularized by Khan a few years ago, where you assign a certain percentage of the course per week, and students can go in and do the course challenge to see what their strengths and weaknesses are. But this MAP Accelerator is the solution to that criticism. So they've combined forces here with NWEA. NWEA is also a nonprofit, and they implement the MAP test, which is a really common measure of growth for a lot of schools in the U.S. and a lot of international schools. The MAP test, given twice a year, will show growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Their test is generally not based on the exact year that the student is in, or the exact content that the student is in, although they can do that. The general way that they do it is by having an adaptive test, which gives the student an RIT score from 0 to 350. And that 0 to 350 covers the entire K to 5 or 6 to 12, if I remember correctly. So they have joined forces, and we're going to look here at this paper, which is by Khan Academy. It's produced by Khan Academy. So obviously, when you have a self-produced paper like this, you need to be view it with a critical eye. We're going to see that this is a fairly large paper. It's pretty new. I'm trying to look for the date on it. I think it's 2021 or 2022. We may be able to see that later. Oh, there we go. The 2020 to 2021 school year. So it is really new. The paper was published in late 2021 or early 2022, and it's very recent research on this. Their sample sizes are 181,000 students in grades 3 to 8 from 99 school districts across the United States. So this is a good, large sample. They're not saying it's a representative sample or anything, but it's a good, large sample of students. This was during COVID shutdown time, so we're going to see later on there's some learning loss, and really that we'll look at Khan Academy mitigating that learning loss in this study more than promoting better results, better positive results. So we had math growth scores of 0.26 deviations higher than average with similar students. So the 0.26 is not extremely large, but it is a correlation study, so we have to additionally take this with a bit of a grain of salt here. I've explained this idea behind NWEA map growth and what that is, but the MAP Accelerator I haven't yet talked about. So the MAP Accelerator takes those map results and determines where the student's strengths are and where the student's weaknesses are, and then imports the units in Khan Academy that are relevant to the student's weaknesses, and gives the student an individualized math pathway, which solves some of this problem that I talked about. This solves some of the linearness of the problem that Khan Academy has, and this is one of the reasons why I use other tools if it's available, like Alex, which has an adaptive machine learning system. But if MAP Accelerator solves this issue, that would be great. So you can see that they get specific units that they're assigned, and those look different to the standard Khan Academy interface. The interface basically looks the same, but the content there is adapted for the student, which is awesome. So I'm going to scroll down here for a second, and you can see what the kind of teacher reports look like here. So here's the placement test, and you can see that it's broken down into strands and which students need to be working on which strands for the teacher. That here we have the individual student breakdown. Here's their band that they're in for their RIT score, and their progress on those strands. Teacher can also come in and look at the individual student's skills tab, which is very similar to what you'll see for in normal Khan Academy. So a lot of these reports look very similar to other reports if you've used Khan Academy, but they are tailored individually for the student with regard to skills. So this total learning minutes, skills leveled up, and skills without progress, this is something that you can see in the activity overview for your classes, whether you're using MAP Accelerator or not. This kind of skill report also looks exactly the same, but under the MAP Accelerator, the kids who are in it will vary depending on their requirements. And when you open that skills report, you get to see which students have mastered which skills, and students which aren't assigned in those skills have mastered them already. But these are just the students that have been assigned those skills. And you can of course assign content, but the MAP Accelerator doesn't really do that. Then a nice thing is administrators get to view the whole school, or district level gets to view multiple schools. So I just found out about MAP Accelerator. I've been using Khan Academy since, my gosh, maybe 2012 or 2013, and I've watched it develop. But this is a new thing that I have asked for a long time, which is an adaptive system. And I'm not going to talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a lot of learning loss, and we'll see that a little bit later. We're going to look at this by school, so you can see they're going to show the code that they used to do this. They use their free and reduced lunch there to try to band schools into high free reduced lunch, medium free reduced lunch, and low free reduced lunch, and unknown, and see what kind of difference that makes. Also the number of ELLs. And we'll see ELL performance is always a struggle with Khan Academy, and that's actually one of the reasons why I use it with my ELLs. It requires them to do a lot more reading than they would otherwise do. Demographic data, male, female, and by Hispanic, white, Latino. I'm sure there's black. I don't remember. I went through this before, but I don't remember what all of the demographic groups are. I'm sure there's Asian and black as well. And how much they use the tool. That's, of course, important. The problem with COVID-19 is we had a lot of students who were not using the system, or using the system very little. And that was true for all subjects and all things. There were a lot of kids who just checked out for the entire year. And as you get free and reduced lunch, higher levels, more and more of the kids basically checked out of school for that entire year, and a lot of learning loss. They did what they could to correlate differences based on the teacher, and based on the school, based on the district, and they saw that the differences in about 57 of the difference in student usage is explained by differences in this. And I've tried to implement Khan Academy whole school a couple of times, and I've even been involved in multi-school stuff. And that's a big frustration, big big sticking point. Some teachers, despite knowing what they need to do and having proper training and all of that and being aware of what's going on, they just don't feel like they want to implement it in their classroom, or they give it more or less. Some teachers will give it more of the spotlight, and some teachers will give it very little. The same way for schools. If your school administrator is not behind this, then probably almost nothing's going to happen. So these are great factors to try to correlate and take out. So we're left with about 43% of the students' own family life, personal motivation, stuff like that. So the students take a baseline RIT score for their fall RIT score, and then the end-line test RIT score in spring. They do both math and reading, and I think this is good that they show the reading score, so we can see what progress was in like a normal class. It's not exactly the same, but you can see how reading progressed and whether the math is progressing in the same kind of rate. And let's go ahead and jump down to the results here. So you can see the blue is our math results, and so we're looking at separating out bands by no use and less than 15 minutes of use, and 15 to 29 minutes of use per week, and 30 minutes of use per week. And you can see that as use increases, the math scores increase, and you can see that the students who had no use for this, their math score dropped over the course of the year, which is that learning loss that everybody's talking about. So it's the largest percentage of our students are in these two bands and lost a lot. And while you can say that this is a positive, very nicely positive, almost linear, it doesn't really speak to the effectiveness of the tool per se, because that may be the only math they were doing, or most of the math they were doing, kids doing more work, getting more practice, do better. That's pretty much true across almost all math practice programs. But what we can see is that we can expect that students who are doing a lot, students who are more than 30 minutes in the math program, in the MAP Accelerator program, we're probably also doing work in reading. So we can see we have students who are not participating in school and participating slightly and more in school. So we can almost abstract this into a metric for how involved were students in school that year. And you can see that reading also goes up almost linearly across here, but it goes up at a much slower rate. So that is a slight positive to talk about how Khan Academy MAP Accelerator improves scores faster than the standard reading program. We can use the standard reading program almost as a baseline here. So here's the code they use for their second. We can see that when we break this down again by how much work the students did, we can see the math and reading bands here with error, and again we'll see that line for the Khan Academy MAP Accelerator moving up at a faster rate, higher slope there than the reading. And if we disaggregate by demographics and look at by grade level, we can see that the grade level there's not a trend or anything, so it appears to be effective. Less effective for grade 3 and grade 6. I'm not sure if it was. So there's an issue with the MAP test, that the primary MAP test is K to 5, if I remember correctly, and then we have this problem. Then 6 to 12 gets a different MAP test, and students' scores student scores decrease a lot there, and I realize this is a growth point estimation of growth, but it is a new version of the test, significantly harder than the fifth grade test, so that may, I think it's worth exploring if that's a reason for this fall. I'm not saying that's the reason for the fall. We can see that girls grew more than boys. Girls generally do better in school than boys at this point, so that's not really surprising. That matches a lot of other results, and you can see the reading matches up here too. We have a broken down by Asian, Black, Hispanic, and white. You can see Asians and blacks grew the most. Hispanics grew after that, and whites grew the least. So you could say that this helps the disadvantaged groups of black and Hispanic kids more than other groups. Our graph over here is by free and reduced lunch. Low free reduced lunch gets the best results, and in my experience, I'm going to guess that correlates to parental involvement, parental help with homework, that kind of thing. But you can see that the high free and reduced lunch were also really helped by this program more than the middle group. And ELLs, when we get into high amounts of ELLs in the school, we had lower progress. Very likely, given what I know about schools with high ELLs, was this tool was not prioritized because they really have to do a lot of ESL work with the kids. But also Khan Academy is difficult for these kids to complete because there are a lot of word problems, a lot of application problems that require language proficiency. And that's actually one of the reasons why I like it for my ELLs, is because I can provide a very small amount of homework, but then it does give them that practice in trying to understand. They have to do various translations and such to work through. So you can see the effect here is small, not that large, but it was particularly much better for kids in poverty and disadvantaged groups. So I think it's worthwhile to look after this, follow this MAP Accelerator. There's one more piece of research put out by NWEA here from Ohio, and this was also 2020 to 2021. So I'm looking for the number of kids. We'll get it. It's down here somewhere. So the 15 to 30 minutes in school, once or twice a week, and look at the outcomes here. Ohio State test scores went from 43% to 72% for sixth grade. For seventh grade, it went from 51% to 65%. So these are good gains, especially during a year when most people saw learning loss. I think it's fair to say that this is a good way to tailor instruction, give students extra practice. MAP Accelerator is probably not going to be good for the primary method of instruction, but I would certainly feel comfortable assigning it as regular homework in my bilingual or my international schools. So those are the two research papers on Khan Academy MAP Accelerator that I think were relevant here. Thanks for letting me walk you through this research on this new tool.